Holly's life could hardly be called happy. When she was very young, her mother died tragically at the factory. Her father decided it would be best to move in to his mother. The man struggled deeply with his wife's death and, as often happens, began to drink. Over time, his drinking worsened. Now, arguments erupted between her grandmother and father due to his drinking. One winter day, Holly returned from school to find her father frozen in a snowdrift. The girl had just turned 13. Thus, she became an orphan and was left in her grandmother's care. Her grandmother declined rapidly after the loss of her only son. She often sat by the window crying and saying she couldn't believe her boy was gone and was waiting for him to return. In those moments, Holly was terrified. It seemed to her that her grandmother had truly lost her mind and didn't understand that her father was gone. However, the woman would distract herself and return to reality for a while. But Holly was still afraid that something might happen to her grandmother. Holly finished school and enrolled in a nursing school. She was very capable and succeeded in her nursing school. After graduation, Holly was assigned to a small town, where she met her first husband. She fell in love with him instantly and completely. The world ceased to exist for her. There was only Carlos and everything related to him. Everything else faded into the background. They married 6 months after meeting. A year later, their son Eric was born. It seemed that true happiness had finally come to Holly. Life began to improve for the first time in many years. Holly felt genuinely happy, but 3 years after their son's birth, Carlos died. He worked in construction, and a collapse occurred, crushing him under a concrete slab. Thus, Holly became a young widow, raising her son alone. Time flew by unnoticed. Eric had grown up. He had just turned 13. Holly was returning home from her shift and thinking about how she and her son would visit her grandmother. She had a vacation coming up, and her son had spring break. Holly's relationship with Grandma was strained. Her grandmother was upset that Holly rarely visited, and no explanations satisfied her, although she knew that her granddaughter was a widow, raising a son and working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Holly was about to cross the street when she heard a strange noise. She looked around and saw a man in the bushes. Her nurse instincts kicked in immediately, and she rushed to help. "Sir, don't move, you shouldn't. Where does it hurt? What happened?" Holly quickly asked.
"My head. Someone hit me from behind,"
the man whispered. Holly called an emergency service and requested help while examining the man and providing first aid. The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes and took the injured man to the hospital. He had a moderate concussion and multiple soft tissue contusions. 3 weeks later, Holly was walking home when she heard someone call out, "Miss, please wait a moment." Holly turned around and saw a man hurrying toward her. She looked around, but there was no one else, so he must be calling her. But she didn't recognize him. "Excuse me, are you talking to me?" Holly asked. Yes, you. Please don't rush off. I need to speak with you." "I'm sorry, but what about?" Holly asked, puzzled. "I don't believe we've met." "Not exactly," the man smiled. Holly looked at him closely again and thought, "No, I'm sure I don't know him. I would remember such an interesting and handsome man." "You saved me," the man said. "Ah, now I see," Holly realized. "You're the man who was attacked recently. I'm so glad you're recovering. Did they find who attacked you?" "Yes, they did. It was my ex-wife's brother. We had a difficult divorce and he blamed me for it. He decided to punish me in this strange way." "That's terrible. I'm glad you're all right. Head injuries can be very dangerous," Holly said sympathetically. "But why were you looking for me?" "To thank you, of course," the man smiled. "I'm Douglas." He extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Douglas. I'm Holly." "I'm sorry I don't have flowers, but I wanted to invite you to dinner at a restaurant. Your husband won't mind, will he? It's just a thank you dinner for saving me." Holly immediately thought of Carlos. Despite the passing years, she still loved her husband deeply, and every time someone asked about him, tears welled up in her eyes. The pain was still raw. In all the years since his death, Holly had not been with another man. Her friend Cassandra scolded her, saying it wasn't healthy and that she should find someone, even just for companionship. But Holly couldn't imagine anyone else touching her. She still loved her husband, but now, looking at Douglas, before he mentioned her husband, Holly found herself thinking that she liked him. There was something magnetic about Douglas that drew Holly in. He noticed the change in her expression and quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, did I say something wrong?" "No, it's all right. I'm a widow. I don't have a husband," Holly explained. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bring up painful memories. That was awkward of me." Douglas sincerely apologized. "It's okay, Douglas, you didn't know, and I understand you didn't mean to. It's just still a sensitive topic for me." "Your husband passed away recently?" "Many years ago. He died in a construction accident." Douglas looked at Holly in surprise. This beautiful young woman still remained faithful to her late husband, which was quite rare these days. He decided not to comment further and changed the subject. "Do you live nearby?" "Yes, that's my building over there," Holly pointed. "I'll accept your invitation to dinner, Douglas, but let's make it tomorrow. I'm exhausted today." "Of course, tomorrow it is. Where and when would you like to meet?" "How about Imperia? The prices are reasonable and the food is good. Around 7 o'clock? "Sounds perfect. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. at Imperia. I'll be looking forward to it." He kissed her hand goodbye and walked briskly to his car parked nearby. Holly watched him leave, feeling a magnetic pull towards him. She decided to ask her friend Cassandra for help in preparing for the date. "Hey, Cassandra, I have some news for you. You might want to sit down." "Hey, did you win the lottery?" Cassandra joked. "No," Holly laughed. "It looks like I have a date tomorrow." Cassandra feigned a dramatic fall. "I'm fine, except for falling off my chair," she joked. "And who is this date with?" Holly briefly recounted her first encounter with Douglas. "Great!" Cassandra smiled. "But what does he do? What does he look like? Although, if you agreed to go out with him, he must be quite attractive." "Oh, stop it," Holly smiled. "So will you help me?" "Of course. We need to find you a proper dress. I'll be at your place by 4 and make you look like a queen tomorrow. And don't worry about Eric. I'll take him to my place and you can relax and enjoy your evening. I hope your date goes well." "Oh, stop it. I just want to talk to him." The next day, Cassandra arrived earlier than planned. By then, Holly had already done her manicure and makeup. However, when Cassandra saw Holly's makeup, she insisted she wash it off immediately. "Are you kidding me? Who are you planning to impress with that makeup?" Cassandra scolded. "Wash it off and sit down." Holly obediently went to wash her face. Truth be told, she had never been good at makeup and rarely wore it, so Cassandra's help was invaluable. "What would I do without you?" Holly said, returning from the bathroom. "You'd have come to the restaurant looking terrifying," Cassandra laughed. "Seriously, you do so much for me and help me out all the time. You must have been sent by God to keep me from going crazy with my life," Holly continued. "Stop it, you're making me blush. Everything will be all right for you, I promise," Cassandra reassured her, though she knew Holly's life had indeed been difficult. "Let's not dwell on the past and focus on the future, specifically tonight. Did you pick out a dress?" "Yes, I'll show you." Holly jumped up and brought out a dress. Cassandra looked at the dress and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was a pale red dress with large white stripes, at least a decade old, and looked very worn. "You were going to wear this? Are you joking? How old is this dress?" I don't wear dresses, you know that. This is from my past life. Well, let it stay in the past. Here. Cassandra went into the hallway and returned with a bag. I brought 3 dresses for you to choose from. Good thing we're the same size. Pick the one you like best. Cassandra took out a dark blue dress and held it up to Holly. I think this one will look great. Do you like it? Holly put on the dress, but it was too short. Cassandra could tell from Holly's expression that she wouldn't leave the house in it, so she took out another dress, a dark burgundy, almost black, long dress with a tasteful neckline. Try this one. It will suit you perfectly. Holly put on the dress, and at that moment, Eric ran into the room and stopped, staring at his mum. "Mum, you look so beautiful in that dress." "Well, that settles it," Cassandra said. "A man has spoken, and we should listen. It really suits you." Holly went into the hallway and looked at herself in the mirror. The dress was magnificent. She looked like a queen. Cassandra paused for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "It's too good for me. I can't wear it." "Are you out of your mind? You're a stunning woman. You should wear dresses like this every day," Cassandra scolded. "We'll do your makeup and hair beautifully, and you'll captivate every man in the restaurant." "I'll feel uncomfortable in this dress," Holly protested. "Maybe I should just wear jeans and a shirt. After all, I can go to a restaurant dressed like that, and no one will kick me out for my appearance." "Yes, exactly," Cassandra agreed with a serious expression. "Wear whatever makes you most comfortable. You could even wear a tracksuit and slippers. No one will kick you out, although the man you invited to dinner might regret it 10 times over and run away as soon as you leave the restaurant." All right, no need to exaggerate. I'm just saying. He liked me in my everyday clothes," Holly tried to argue. "And? To truly impress a man, you need to put in some effort. Do you think you can impress him with jeans? I highly doubt it. Enough chatter. Sit down. We're going to make you beautiful." Holly knew arguing with Cassandra was pointless, so she obediently sat in the chair. By 7 o'clock, Cassandra had finished working her magic, and Holly was finally allowed to see herself in the mirror. She was astonished by her reflection. Then she turned and hugged her friend. "Thank you so much. I feel completely different in this outfit." "Of course you do," Cassandra smiled, pleased with herself. "Now, pack the essentials in your purse. It's in the bag. I brought a universal one just in case. And get going on your date. Eric and I will be rooting for you." "Just don't tell Eric where I'm going," Holly remembered to warn. "I don't want him to think his mum is a traitor." "Are you crazy? What kind of traitor? Who are you betraying? You're an adult single woman who has the right to a personal life. Get those silly thoughts out of your head. Besides, your son is very mature for his age. He's asked me more than once why his mum lives alone. And I told him the truth, that it's hard to find someone as good as his dad." "Thank you," Holly said, nearly in tears. The drive to the restaurant only took 10 minutes. Holly gazed out the window, trying to imagine what she would say during dinner. How would she behave? How would Douglas react to her? But she couldn't picture it clearly because she was nervous and hadn't been on a date in a long time. The taxi arrived at the restaurant at 2 minutes to 7. Holly hated being late, so she sighed in relief as she checked the time and was glad she arrived on time. Douglas was waiting for her at the entrance. Holly spotted him as they pulled up. He, however, didn't notice her, even as she stepped out of the car. He must have thought she would walk. "Are you waiting for me?" Holly asked, approaching her date. Douglas turned around and was speechless. He opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. He was stunned by her appearance. "Is everything all right? Or should I use my professional skills and provide first aid?" Holly smiled. "No, I'm fine," Douglas finally managed to say. "Shall we go inside?" Holly suggested. "Yes, of course," Douglas agreed, still admiring her from every angle. He clearly hadn't expected such a striking entrance. As they sat down at the table, Douglas helped Holly with her chair and quickly took his own seat across from her. Holly smiled at his bewilderment and disorientation. She had planned to make an impression, but she hadn't expected such a reaction, and she liked it. Once he regained his composure, Douglas showered Holly with compliments. She listened, blushing with embarrassment. It had been a long time since anyone had said such nice things to her. It wasn't that there hadn't been men trying to win her heart over the years, but she hadn't responded to them. Now, however, she enjoyed listening to the compliments and the company of this interesting and impressive man. Over dinner, they talked a lot about their pasts. Holly told him about Eric, and Douglas confessed that he loved children, but his ex-wife couldn't have them, which was one of the reasons for their divorce. "That must be hard for a woman when she can't have children," Holly sympathized. "Unfortunately, my ex-wife didn't really want them. She preferred to live for herself and her own pleasure. Sometimes that's just how it is," Douglas said. "Let's change the subject," Holly suggested. "Tell me, what do you do for work?" "I'm a business analyst. I work in the consulting department." "And you work in medicine, right? For how long?" "I'm a nurse. You don't have any relatives?" Douglas asked. "No, I only have my grandmother. But she lives far away in the countryside and is quite elderly. I wanted to bring her to live with us in the city, but she refused. She's a village person, and my husband was an orphan. He had no one." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Well, I've grown used to this situation. The most important thing is that I have my son." They talked and laughed for a long time, recalling funny incidents from their childhood and school days. Holly was surprised at how easily she could communicate with this almost stranger, having only seen him 3 times in her life. After the restaurant, Douglas suggested a walk, but Holly was too tired. "Douglas, I'm sorry, but I don't have the energy for a walk," she admitted. "How about we take a taxi and drive around the city?" Douglas suggested. "That sounds wonderful. I love the city lights at night." Douglas called a taxi, and they drove through the city centre. The streets were quiet, allowing them to enjoy the nighttime beauty. Then they finally arrived at Holly's apartment. Douglas was sitting close to her, his cologne making her slightly dizzy. "If I invite him in, he might think I'm easy, but I really want him to stay," Holly thought, trying to find a reason to prolong the evening. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" she asked finally. Douglas turned and looked at Holly. He was a grown man and perfectly understood exactly what it was about. "I'd love to," he agreed, paying the taxi driver. They went upstairs, and coffee was the last thing on their minds. A few months later, Douglas proposed, and Holly accepted. He had won over Eric, charmed Cassandra, and even impressed her granny during a visit. To Holly's surprise, her grandmother, usually strict and critical of men, approved of Douglas. Holly was overjoyed. She couldn't believe her life had taken such a wonderful turn. Douglas helped around the house, cooked, and spent every weekend with his family. He played with Eric, took him to the park, and drove him to his activities. He treated Holly with immense care, and she blossomed under his attention. This happiness lasted for nearly 5 years, until Eric graduated from high school and enrolled in a university in another city. After Eric's departure, things began to change rapidly. Douglas started coming home late from work, sometimes working weekends and frequently travelling for business. Holly struggled to understand the sudden change in her husband. One evening, Douglas called to say he would be late again. Holly hung up the phone and burst into tears. She felt hurt that he didn't seem eager to come home and offered no explanations. Holly called Cassandra, her voice trembling with tears. "He's staying late at work again," she sobbed. "Maybe he really is busy with his new position," Cassandra suggested. "Cassandra, he was promoted a year ago. Even then he wasn't like this. I don't understand what's happening." "Have you tried talking to him?" "Yes, many times, but he avoids the conversation." Holly cried. "Let's think logically," Cassandra said, trying to calm her friend. "There must be a reason for his behaviour. Maybe he's having health issues and doesn't want to worry you." "Seriously, if he gets a splinter, he talks about it for 2 days." "Maybe trouble at work?" Cassandra continued. "I don't know. He doesn't talk about it." "I still think you need to try to talk to him," Cassandra insisted. "All right, I'll try," Holly agreed, hanging up the phone. She took a deep breath and dialed Douglas's number. "Douglas, is everything all right?" she asked. "Yes, just a lot of work. It's the end of the quarter, and I need to prepare a report," he explained impatiently. "I understand, but we've grown distant, don't you think?" "Holly, I'm at work. We can discuss this at home, not during business hours. I'm busy," Douglas snapped. "All right, I'm sorry. I'll leave dinner on the stove if you want to eat when you get home." "Fine," Douglas said, hanging up. Holly decided not to dwell on it and headed to the bathroom. She drew a hot bath with bubbles to relax, but her thoughts kept returning to Douglas's strange behaviour. A man cannot change in such a short time, just like that, without reason. And he began to talk to her reluctantly, as if with a favour, and could yell on the phone, hiding behind the business. That's never happened before. Holly almost fell asleep in the bathroom. Scared that she might drown, she quickly got out of the bath, wiped herself down, put on her pyjamas and went to bed. Around 6 a.m, Holly was awakened by a phone call. She answered, her voice still groggy with sleep. "Is this Holly Arcos?" an unfamiliar voice asked. "I regret to inform you that your grandmother has passed away suddenly." Holly burst into tears. She couldn't believe that her beloved grandmother, her only remaining family besides Eric, was gone. "I'll be there as soon as possible," she managed to say. Hanging up, Holly stared at the ceiling, trying to process the news. Her grandmother was 86 years old, and although her death was not entirely unexpected due to her age, it was still a shock. Holly remembered how her grandmother would refuse various treats so that Holly could have more, how they would go to the forest together to pick mushrooms and berries, and how her grandmother would bake the most delicious pies, while her health still allowed it. Yes, she had a difficult personality, but she loved her granddaughter as much as her tough and sometimes harmful nature permitted, and Holly was very grateful to her for not giving her up to an orphanage, for not abandoning her, but for raising her to be a good person. This was indeed a great achievement of her grandmother. The young woman dialed her husband's number, but there was no answer. "Fine, I'll manage without help. I'll do it myself." She called Eric. Holly knew it was very early, and her son was probably still asleep, but he needed to know what had happened and had to go with her to arrange the funeral. Eric answered with a sleepy voice. "Yes, Mum, what's wrong? Why so early?" "Son, Grandma has passed away." "She died? Oh, no," Eric said, now more awake. "I'll take a shower and head over to you." "No, go straight to the village. I'll get ready and head out too." Holly was glad she had raised her son so well, sensitive, caring, understanding, with the right outlook on life and relationships. She had never been ashamed of her son. She tried calling Douglas again, but his phone was still off. So Holly left a voicemail. He'll listen to it when he turns his phone on, she thought, and went to pack for the trip. Douglas called back closer to noon. Holly, I'm sorry I fell asleep on the office couch. I didn't have the energy to go home. Yes, I understand. I'm almost at the village now. I don't have time to discuss our issues. I'll be on my way soon, too. All right, Holly said and hung up. After the funeral, the whole family returned to the city. What are you going to do with that dump? Douglas asked. It's not a dump, Holly protested. It's still a house, and it's the house of my childhood. I don't know what I'll do with it. Maybe I'll board up the windows, or maybe I'll rent it out to someone who needs a place to live. Who would want to live there? It needs a major renovation. Then we'll do the renovation and rent it out. I'm not putting my money into that. It's not just your money. I make good money too. Maybe we'll move there together when we're old. No, I won't go there. I'm a city person. I can't live in the countryside. Either way, I'm keeping it. I'm not selling it. It's your choice, Douglas agreed calmly and left the kitchen muttering. As if anyone would buy that dump, even if they wanted to. Holly struggled with her grandmother's death, and there was little support. Her son was always busy with his studies, and her husband didn't seem to care about what she was going through. Only her best friend Cassandra could listen and sympathize, but Holly didn't want to burden her with complaints and problems. 2 months passed. One day, Holly returned from her shift and heard her husband talking to someone. Entering the kitchen, she saw a young woman sitting at the table. Douglas was standing by the stove making coffee. Good morning. What's going on here? Holly asked. The question was entirely appropriate, as Douglas was standing in the middle of the kitchen in just his shorts, and the young woman was sitting by the window in his shirt. Oh, hi. You're back already? Douglas asked casually. Yes, I am, and apparently not at the best time, Holly noted. Why? Not the best time. It's the perfect time. Meet Barbara. She's my beloved. Douglas replied calmly. And who am I then? Holly asked, genuinely surprised. You're my wife, and soon an ex-wife. He looked at Barbara, smiled, and turned back to Holly. You see, Barbara is pregnant. I'm going to be a father for the first time in my life. I can't abandon the woman who is going to make me truly happy. Congratulations. Pack your things and leave. No, we're not going anywhere. You see, we have nowhere to live. And I like this apartment. I've put not just my money but my soul into it. So pack your things, dear, and go to your dump in the village, Douglas said, laughing. Aren't you bothered that he's married? Holly asked Barbara. No, it doesn't bother me. Besides, that status is temporary. Barbara laughed. You can't kick me out of our apartment, Holly said firmly. I'm asking you nicely to leave. We can't all live together in one apartment. That would be weird. And we have nowhere to go, unlike you. So it is what it is. Holly looked at Douglas in disbelief. It felt as though an entirely different person stood before her. Not the man who had courted her, befriended her son, and helped around the house, but a total stranger. She couldn't understand how someone could change so drastically in such a short time. What had influenced him so profoundly? Or who? This woman? Perhaps. But he couldn't just kick his wife out of her own apartment. Holly, let's not make a scene, okay? I really don't want to argue right now. Besides, my Barbara is pregnant. She shouldn't be stressed.
You're a medic. You understand this perfectly.
Suddenly an idea struck Holly. Maybe she should just leave for the village. Let Douglas live as he pleases. Why cling to someone who doesn't even respect her? If he respected her, even if he didn't love her, he would never have brought his mistress here. So what's the point of staying with him? She turned around and silently left the kitchen. She gathered her essentials and left the apartment, slamming the door behind her. Arriving in the village, Holly immediately began cleaning. She always cleaned when she needed to think deeply. Strangely, she didn't cry. She wasn't overly upset or thinking about her husband's betrayal. It felt as though she didn't care. But she did. She had married Douglas because, for the first time since Carlos's death, she felt something for another man, and now she was hurt. But this time by betrayal.
Hello? Is anyone home?
Holly heard a voice from outside. She stepped onto the porch and saw a man in his 40s leaning on her gate. "Can I help you?" Holly asked.
"Oh, I'm so glad to see you. I've already checked 6 houses and no one answered. I thought this street was deserted."
"Well, the village isn't very lively. Not just our street. What do you need? Are you looking for someone?"
"No, my car broke down. I'm building a farm on the outskirts of the village. I want to breathe life back into our nearby villages."
Holly looked at the man in surprise. "Do you really think that will help revive the nearby villages?"
"I don't think, I know. Not everyone wants to live in the city. Some people would love to move to the countryside if there were jobs available. I'll provide those jobs, allowing people to live in the fresh air and enjoy natural produce. I have a successful complex in the region. I spent several years setting it up, and now it runs like clockwork. I left a manager in charge and came here. I was born here, in a neighbouring village. Now I want to revive my hometown. I have the experience." If Holly hadn't interrupted him, he probably would have talked about his dreams and plans for much longer. "So, how can I help you? Unfortunately, I don't have a car." "Is there your husband around?" "No," Holly replied, lowering her head. For some reason she felt embarrassed and even ashamed that there was no man in the house. Officially there was, but in reality there wasn't. "That's not a problem. You must have tools around. May I take a look?" "Yes, of course. Come in." Holly led the guest to the shed where her grandmother kept various tools. The man searched for a while, but apparently didn't find what he needed. "Didn't you find what you were looking for?" Holly asked. "Unfortunately, no,"
the stranger replied and turned to leave. At that moment, he hit his head on a hook hanging near the door. Blood immediately started flowing from the wound. Holly rushed to the man to assess the injury. "Don't touch the wound with dirty hands," she commanded. "Come inside, I'll clean it up." "It's just a scratch, no need." The man tried to refuse, but seeing Holly's stern look, he realised it was better to comply. "Wounds from rusty metal must be treated to prevent infection and complications."
"Understood,"
the man agreed, and followed the hostess inside. Holly cleaned the wound and applied a small bandage.
"Are you a doctor?"
the man asked. "I'm a nurse. Well, I was." Holly paused for a moment and added, "A week ago."
"Why in the past? Did you quit? Don't you like your job?"
"I love my job and helping people, but circumstances led me to leave. But it had nothing to do with the job." "That's great!" the guest exclaimed for some reason. "What's great? That somebody lost their beloved job?"
"No, that this village will have its own nurse. I'll build a medical office, and you can help people, provide first aid, and treat minor ailments that don't require hospitalization."
"There's no need to build anything. The village used to have its own doctor. The clinic is there, just abandoned."
"Even better. We'll renovate it, and you can see patients there."
And who will pay my salary? Holly smiled. I love helping people, but I can't live without money.
I'll pay your salary,
the man said, and mentioned the proposed amount.
Holly was so surprised that she sat down on a chair. Is that per month? Of course, is it not enough? I'll increase it once the farm is fully operational.
No, that's a good salary. I agree.
Great, it's settled. We'll start in September. Oh, by the way, what's your name?
The man suddenly remembered. I'm Holly. And you?
Nice to meet you, Holly. I'm Henry. The future farmer smiled and extended his hand.
Holly smiled and shook his hand. They exchanged phone numbers and chatted a bit more before Henry left to continue his search for men in the village. Holly stood by the gate, gazing into the distance, marvelling at her luck. She understood that she could return to the city, but at that moment she yearned to live in this house, breathe the fresh air, and immerse herself in the unique energy and familiar scent of her childhood home. Returning inside, Holly was determined to finish cleaning. She entered the far room to roll up the carpet and beat the dust out of it, when she noticed a displaced floorboard. I am not going to repair the floor any time soon, Holly lamented. She knelt down and tried to fix the floorboard, but it wouldn't budge. Deciding to lift it and put it back in place, she discovered a neatly wrapped package underneath. Holly retrieved the package and tried to figure out what it was. It was huge, and as she began to unwrap it, she felt a surge of excitement mixed with fear. Her heart raced and her palms grew sweaty. What if this was a family secret, best left unknown? She tossed the package onto the floor. Maybe I should just burn it, she asked herself. But curiosity won out, and she unwrapped the package. As she revealed its contents, Holly felt genuinely ill. The package contained stacks of dollars. This is a lot of money, she thought. Where did such a large sum come from? She noticed a note tucked inside another package and, with trembling hands, unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakably her grandmother's. Dear Holly, the letter began, if you are reading this, then you have found your inheritance. When you were born, your father started on saving money for your dowry. After his passing, it was difficult to save. You remember how we lived. I tried not to deprive you, but it wasn't always possible. For some reason, I believed that the future was more important than the present. Later, when you got married, I wanted to give you the money, but I thought you didn't need it at the time. Now that Carlos has passed away, and you are left alone with a small child, you need this money. You are welcome to take it and use it. Forgive me, it's all I could do. Your loving grandmother. Tears streamed down Holly's cheeks. In the last decade, her grandmother had indeed experienced memory issues, often forgetting even her great-grandson's name. She must have forgotten about the inheritance as well. This was a significant sum by their city's standards, and in the village it made her almost a millionaire. Suddenly, an idea struck Holly. What if she invested in the farm's construction? That way, she could secure her future and Eric's. The money would steadily flow into their family budget. She decided to call Cassandra immediately and stepped outside. "Hey, friend, how's it going?" Holly asked. "Hey, you are missing. Did you leave home?" Cassandra replied. "Who told you that?" "Douglas, I stopped by your place today. He said that you ran off with another man," Cassandra said. "Of course I didn't believe that nonsense and planned to call you tonight, but you beat me to it." Holly recounted how she returned home to find her husband with his pregnant lover. He had suggested she leave the apartment to them since Barbara was pregnant, and they had nowhere to live, while Holly now had her granny's house and should go there willingly. Cassandra was furious. "Why didn't you call me right away?
We could have kicked that shameless pair out. And why did you leave your mutual apartment to them? You should fight."
Cassandra, calm down. Honestly, I'm glad I left. I've seen for a while now that Douglas has changed. She's pregnant, and he has no children of his own. He's always dreamed of this, and he's not getting any younger. If not now, when? Let him be happy. And the apartment? We'll certainly settle all this at our divorce. So, you're planning to live in the village from now on? There's no work or decent conditions there, Cassandra said, surprised. Cassandra, your views on village life are outdated. There are opportunities here, and I've already found a job, by chance. Plus, I discovered my inheritance. I found a letter from my grandmother today while cleaning. My parents and grandmother had been saving money for me. I inherited a substantial sum. I'll renovate the house and invest in a promising project. I've thought it all through and will live comfortably in the fresh air. Are you sure about this project? What if it's a scam? Cassandra worried. No, it's legitimate. We'll sign an official contract. I've planned everything. I just need to convince one person, but I think he'll agree. Come visit me later. And now I have chores to do. Bye. Holly hung up and immediately dialed another number. Henry? Hi, it's Holly again. Did you fix your car? Yes, thank you, Holly. Were you worried? A bit. I need to meet with you. Is that possible? Of course, tomorrow at 9. I'll be in the village and will stop by your place. See you then. The next day, Henry arrived as promised. Holly had baked a pie and brewed tea. She invited her future partner inside. You wanted to see me? Henry began. Yes, I have a serious proposal for you. Maybe we should chat first. Get to know each other better? Henry suggested with a smile. It's a business proposal, Holly clarified, blushing. Oh, business, that's less interesting. I was hoping for more, Henry teased. Why is it less interesting? Are you refusing already? Holly worried. No, it's interesting. I just hoped it wouldn't be about business. Holly ignored his teasing and explained her idea. I want to be your partner, invest my money in the farm and renovate the medical clinic. What do you think? Henry was visibly surprised, but agreed. Let's make it official with a notary to avoid any issues later. Soon Holly's life took an exciting turn. She renovated the medical clinic and her home, created a garden, and even installed a pool. News of the village's new medical centre spread quickly, and people came to Holly for help. Over the year, Holly and Henry grew closer. Holly realised she missed him when he wasn't around. She saw that he was not indifferent to her, but he was in no hurry to give signs of attention. One day, Holly couldn't stand it and invited him to dinner, and Henry decided not to miss such an opportunity. He arrived with flowers and a ring. I won't beat around the bush. Will you marry me? He asked. Holly was stunned. Me? Marry you? She teased. Yes, you. Will you? I think... Yes, I will. Henry kissed her gently, and Holly embraced him tightly. 2 months later, they were married. A year after that, Holly gave birth to a daughter. Holly finally felt truly happy with a loving partner and a growing family.